Hi everyone, it's Lou. I don't normally do videos because I hate them, but in the spirit of the party, I decided to do one today. Um, I'm going to be doing a reading from my new prequel novella in the Fractioneer series, scheduled to be released mid-January, called BloodLoss. In case you're wondering about the sights and sound in the backgrounds, my dog is throwing a fit because I'm not paying attention to her, so you'll probably see her running around with things that she's dug out of the recycling bin. So sorry about that. Here goes. BloodLoss. Prologue, Norway, winter 1606. What is that racket? Yarmir groused. He upended his wineskin, letting the last few drops of liquor burn across his tongue. His eyes swam and his head throbbed. Perhaps the Russians were onto something with this potato concoction. The caterwauling continued, making the pounding in his head grow fierce. The beast in his mind growled low, sensing an easy meal. Yarmir licked his lips and steered his mount in the direction of the sound. The nag chuffed a plume of breath out into the frigid air and trudged off through the newly fallen snow. Oh, because your life is so hard, is it? He should have left the flea-bitten mare back at the inn, but no ordinary man would leave a warm hearth and take off on foot into an inclement blizzard. The tavern had already been abuzz with tales of the beast who was stalking the night, making off with the children and sheep. Ha, he harumphed under his breath. He hadn't taken any children. He might be a monster, but even he had standards. The sheep, on the other hand. At any rate, to stave off any further scandal, he'd loaded himself when the mare down with supplies and pallets of useless furs, and made up some story of a pregnant wife he needed to get back home to, and he headed off into the coming storm. Come on, Yarmir urged the nag onward with a squeeze of his heel. Can't you go any faster? On foot, he could walk faster than his mare could run, but the old girl did have the advantageous quality of being able to remain upright when he could not. His eyes were drooping, his feet hung low in the stirrups. Even the snow now saturating the heavy hood of his cloak couldn't keep him awake for long. At the end of a wooded path his mount has been traversing for what seemed like days, the forest parted at the steep bank of a winding river, the water still traveling too softly with snow melt to completely freeze over. When his mare could go no further, sensing the danger from the rapid current, Yaromir dismounted and tossed his reins over a low-hanging branch. The cries he'd heard so clearly before were now growing faint, stuttering, as if the creature making the shrill wailing was soon nearing death. He harumphed an irritated breath. He had no use for cold blood. Want, the beast urged him onward, clearly intrigued by whatever this hunt might offer. So Yarmir, seeing little other option for a kill in the now knee-high snows, followed the beast's direction and headed downstream. The crimson haze of the beast's power overtook his vision, giving the powdery snow a more ominous hue. A chill breeze blew past him, bringing with it a scent he was unfamiliar with. What kind of animal was it? Certainly not human. It smelled earthy and wet, like a hound, though different somehow, unique. Stepping over a rocky rise, he finally caught sight of the creature, a small screaming infant clinging to a stone in the middle of a raging torrent. It had all the looks of a human child, though a human child would have been long dead by now in this frigid weather. Yaromir scrambled quickly over the rocks, leaping from stone to stone to reach an outcropping in the midst of the river. His beast rattled the bars of its mental prison, wanting to get nearer to the child. No, he wouldn't give over to the demon. This creature, though odd, was no more than an infant. He had done many things in his long life, but slaughtering infants was not one of them. Extending one long arm, Yaromir attempted to snag the child, who was now watching him with a terrified curiosity. No doubt if it had been left there to die, it had little trust of adults, and his claw-tipped hand reaching for the little thing must be the last thing it wanted to see. It's all right, he found himself cooing to the frightened babe. Do not be afraid. The infant's tiny hands gripped the stone with newfound vigor. With a wail, it managed to pull itself higher out of the water, its little legs kicking against the current. That's it, Yaromir encouraged as he laid down on the rocks to edge further out into the river. Just a little bit more. The babe's rump raised onto the stone, followed by a pair of legs covered in downy silver fur. A small tail thrashed wildly, flinging frigid water in Yaramir's direction. Gods, he sputtered. A troll? He'd known they existed, but they remained high in the mountains, living a solitary life. He'd rarely heard of anyone actually seeing one, much less this low in the forest. How in the name of the gods had the infant made its way here? With a grunt and a last-ditch stretch of his fingertips, he managed to snag the child by its long whipping tail, nearly pulling the thing off in the process. The infant cried out in startled agony, but Yaramir soon had the little bundle pressed to his chest and was making his way back to shore. The wet-trolled babe nuzzled into him, trying to get closer to his warmth. The old nag was right where he'd left her, chewing lazily on a stash of pine needles she'd dug out of the snow. Yaramir quickly untied the pack of furs from the mare's back, spreading them out on the snow. "It's all right," he whispered to the babe, when the little thing refused to let him go, digging its tiny fingers into the fabric of its cloak. It was so strong for just an infant. "It's all right." Finally, with enough coaxing, the child released him, and he wrapped it up in furs until only his cherubic face was visible. "Better?" The thing nodded as if it understood him, but that wasn't possible. "Are you hungry?" he asked, trying to test the theory. His own stomach rumbled in response, and the beast growled in his mind. The child nodded again, taking his thoughts away from the demon lurking in his skull. Well, I don't know what trolls eat." He reached up and grabbed the end of the tree limb his mount was currently munching on. "Do you eat this?" The look on the little thing's sour face gave him the answer he needed. He let out a hearty chuckle and grabbed for the leather pack attached to his saddle, pulling out a stale biscuit. "How about this?" The infant snatched the food from his hands and began devouring it hungrily, not even pausing for breath. It licked the morsels from his fingers until every last crumb was gone. "Well, I suppose you were hungry." The beast in his mind railed against him, causing his head to throb. "Want!" it cried. "Want!" He needed to eat soon, but he would not harm the child. He could not. He sat back on his heels in the snow and looked up at the sky. He had only an hour left at most until sunrise. Not enough time to hunt and find shelter. Yaramir scrubbed a hand down his face, hoping the beast's influence hadn't transformed his eyes from blue to devilish red, though if it had, the little troll didn't seem to mind. He reached down and scooped the babe up, slowly rising from the snow. The infant gurgled at him as if he was trying to speak. Then he glanced in its direction. The little thing opened its mouth wide and gnashed its teeth together. "Still hungry?" The troll nodded. Yaramir upended his saddle pack into the snow, but he had only one more stale biscuit and a moldy round of cheese. He hadn't intended on eating them, and had just taken them from the inn to keep up pretenses. "Well, I think he may be out of luck." He picked up the now soggy biscuit and offered it to the child, who promptly gobbled it up, but it turned its nose up at the cheese. "I don't blame you one bit." The child clacked his teeth together, making a mournful groaning sound in the back of its throat. "Hungry still? What now?" And that is it.